On today's show, should DIY musicians ever sign to a record label? We investigate the pros and the cons.
This is 30-Minute Music Marketing.
30-Minute Music Marketing for musicians who want to get better at marketing their music.
Hello, I'm Greg.
Hello, I'm Sheldon, and this is 30-Minute Music Marketing, the show for independent artists and DIY musicians who want to get better at marketing their music. We normally bring you hints, tips, real-life experiences of marketing for independent artists, DIY musicians, Greg. But today, in this episode, it's a first. We're going to deviate and not really talk about marketing per se.
Okay.
Is that going to shock you? Is that going to shock you, Greg? We're basically throwing our raison d'etre into the bin. But
well, it's a bit like our weekly 30-Minute Music Marketing. That's kind of been thrown. But that's probably more my fault than yours.
Oh, sorry, I'm just getting the pointing right. Yeah, but we'll endeavour to bring you episodes as quickly as we can.
So come on then. Why are we deviating?
Over the past couple of months, we've seen many spats from the bigger artists in the world of recorded music. Your Kanye Wests, your Taylor Swifts, trying to remove themselves from current or indeed sort of past recording contracts. And I'm just sort of thinking and positing upon the idea of, we normally extol the benefits of being a DIY musician, but let's just, imagine a scenario. What would happen if you looked in your inbox on whatever social platform it is, and you got sent a message from somebody working for a record label, and they said, "Hey, Greg, I'd like your music. How about signing to us and we will release it?" And so I thought, well, maybe let's discuss maybe some of the pros and cons, and maybe people can, after hearing those, maybe decide whether it might ever be suitable for themselves. The one thing I will say in terms of maybe a caveat right at the beginning, we're using the term record label as a very overarching thing. I mean, obviously, if you think about record labels, there are your three big, multinational record labels, your Sony's, your Universal, and your Warner Brothers, and all their various imprints. You've probably got, in smaller independent labels, but those labels in themselves may have rosters of, many members of staff, and each one of them could be doing, one could be on the lookout for talent. There could be people in marketing, finance, all those sorts of things. And if you wanted to get it down even smaller, you could probably go down to something along the lines of a micro label. And that may just be one single person who runs a label from the back room of their house. And it may well be that maybe they're just an ardent music fan. Maybe they've held a position in a record label themselves at some point previously, and they're just a fan of music, and they can use their knowledge and skills either of the music industry or of a music scene to help release music that they like into the world. So we're using the term label as a very big catch-all. Labels can be large, labels can be small, but should you ever allow someone else to release your music? Shall we first maybe potentially discuss and chat about the benefits?
Yes, we can. I mean, there was something that I think we discussed a few weeks back, because it was talking about, and I know we mentioned his name before, Bill Drummond, and him setting up his label. What's it called? Can you remember?
Well, he released a member of the KLF. The KLF's label was KLF Communications.
But didn't they do stuff before? Because they were talking about it was a way to get records that would have otherwise never been heard.
Oh, that was the Zoo label.
Right. Okay, that's it. I couldn't remember. So yes. I think back then, I think that was, I really liked that idea, that DIY mentality, which I suppose is a precursor to what a lot of people could do today. But to answer your question, would you ever sign to a major? I mean, I think there's still a certain kudos to it.
Oh yeah, in fact that's one of the. Oh right, so that's one of the benefits I don't have written on my list. So there is a kudos, yes, I suppose, and I suppose the larger the label, the larger the kudos.
I mean, so there's that. I think it's a brand association. I think if you go look back at when I started to pay more attention to record labels when I was, 20 odd years ago, the labels that I liked were labels like Deconstruction, Hard Hands, Distinctive Breaks, because a lot of the artists that I listened to were signed to those labels, and I wanted to be assigned to those labels because I wanted to, to me that was an accolade and a recognition of being of a similar level kind of thing. So, but now in terms of would I want to be signed to a major? It depends on the deal.
Okay, well, again, let's discuss some of the...
But yeah, I mean, I think on the whole, unless the deal's really bad, I would like to be signed to a major because...
Well, that's where you get your lawyer to look over the 100 and odd page contract. Right, first off, one of the benefits I had is cold, hard cash, money. They'll have the money, and as we know, recording larger project, album and such, it can be an expensive thing, and guess what? They can pay for all of that. With larger labels, you'd probably get an advance. You'd get some money to live on for a period of perhaps years, which means, guess what, Greg? You could, you might be
these days.
Even these days, you'd be able to quit your job and just concentrate 100% on your music. How brilliant would that be? The one thing about...
I mean, would you say... Sorry to interject.
Carry on.
Would you say that freedom to focus, is that an additional...
It'd
or is that just
nice.
part of the cash kind of aspect?
Well, but I would imagine 99% of the people who will watch or listen to this particular episode have what I would refer to as a normal 9 to 5 job. And if I said to the majority of them, in fact, I'll say this to you now, would you like enough money so you'd be able to quit your job and concentrate 100% on music? And I would imagine, just given that simple proviso, I would imagine a lot of people would take me up on that. Plus, as well, maybe not so much if you're a single individual artist, so somebody like an Ed Sheeran or maybe a one-person EDM act. If you think about if you're in a band, maybe there's 4 or 5 members in the band. In order for you to concentrate on your music full time, sorry, I'm just being harangued by a cat. You're going to need a lot of cash. So it's possible, if you're just a one-person outfit, that you might be able to, survive in a moderate way just from the income that you can make from your music. If there's 4 or 5 people in your band, that's going to be hard to do simply because the money is split more ways. I mean, foolishly, there's 6 people in my band. So the chances of us being able to have 6 full-time incomes just on music alone, it's going to be quite hard to pull off. Why I ever put 6 people in my band, I don't know. We should go back to being a 3-piece. The rest of the band aren't going to listen to this.
Hang on, aren't you at times though, like even more than that, with your brass section and your fiddle player?
those people are session musicians, Greg. Okay. You pay them once, you pay them off. Right, so money. They've got money, you don't have money. Yeah. This could be a marriage made in heaven. Second thing that was on my list is there's less stuff for you to do. There's a lot of logistics coordinating any release, whether it's a single release or an album release, and they can do all that for you. I mean, releasing the amount of stuff that I have personally, and in terms of the number of albums that I've released over the past 13, 14 years, it is about 11, 12 albums. I've had, in addition, DVD releases as well. It's a lot of work. Again, if somebody dangled the opportunity to let another entity do all that, the freedom that it would give me, the time it would give me to do other things, more creative things, it's very tempting.
Sheldon?
Yes?
Can I ask you a question?
Carry on.
Right. Would you really relinquish some of that control?
Well, but I'll tell you what, let's list the pros, potentially list the cons, and then we'll have a we'll have a conflab.
Okay.
Then we'll have a an honesty section. Well, we'll think. Okay. Third thing that I've got on my individual list is marketing expertise. Now, obviously, people who listen or watch our individual episodes, I hope, are building upon their marketing with each and every episode. But it may well be that if you sign to a larger label, they'll have a marketing department who you would hope would be, well versed in all the the latest trends and what have you. For smaller labels, what smaller labels tend to be is they tend to be genre specific.
Yeah.
So and as you were saying before, there tends to be potentially fans of individual labels. You will gravitate towards one particular label because they release the sort of music that you like. So by releasing through a smaller label, you might already have an inbuilt audience for your music. So you don't necessarily have to work at trying to create it. The audience might already be there. So, so you're doing some sort of, the electro pop project. I don't know whether that's how you describe it, but if you signed to a label, say, that is an electro sort of pop sort of label, that label will already have potentially, thousands of followers on their social media channels. They might already, there's your potential audience right away. You could release an album and have an instant hit just from those people.
That cat's hilarious at the moment.
It is. It is
just kind of moving from left to right.
It's distracting me somewhat, but it's all. Oh, his tail's just knocked off my notes. He's gone away now. He's gone away.
Bless him.
Next one on my list, right? If you want to be big, and I mean really big, that will probably only happen with a label. So, if you want to be, as big as Rihanna, if you want to be famous in multiple territories, to use the appropriate label lingo, it's only really going to be the marketing spend of a larger label that's going to help you achieve that. And these figures are a few years old now, but they reckon that to break a new music act, probably a pop act in all this, but to break it in multiple territories across the world, you're talking between $500,000 and $2 million. That's how much money it costs major labels to bring a new act to market.
Believe me now, that's a lot.
So again, if you want to be Beyonce, as big as Beyonce, and I know a lot of people might have a goal like that in their sights, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to work on the basis that if you want to reach mega stardom levels, that's probably not going to happen in a DIY capacity. You're going to maybe have to deviate towards the label side of things and potentially the major label side of things.
What about the bigger tours?
Well,
do labels get involved in that, or is that?
Well, touring is really only an opportunity to capitalize upon the size of your existing audience. So again, in order to start playing stadia or just large venues, of, let's say, at least 2,500, 5,000, 10,000 size, you're going to have an incredibly large audience. And again, the marketing power for that to happen is only going to be through a big spend, and that's going to come from a major label.
Yeah.
So, for me, those are the potential benefits. Shall we have a look at some? Anything to add there, Greg?
I think maybe I guess, do you think there's the likelihood of being able to mingle with other high-profile artists who are on the same label? What would the Star Christmas do be like?
Well, hopefully, assuming they have one this year and it's not all over Zoom. You could. It's sort of, what's that? It's something to do with vertical, rather than going sort of, you go, oh no, it's horizontal. You go sort of up. Sorry, I'm getting my up and my downs. Yes, okay. If you're on the podcast, you've absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, if you reach a certain level where you can go hobnobbing and mingling with maybe say the upper echelons of celebrity and musicians that could, in turn open doors for you. So in other words, if you wanted to duet with Ed Sheeran, if you're just a DIY artist on a self-releasing stuff, he's not going to be knocking on your door anytime soon. However, if you're signed to a moderately large label, then it may well be that the label does the knocking on other people's doors.
They've got a bit more sway than possibly you have on your own.
You could, they could get you to a certain level that could, like you say, open doors for you in terms of your career that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Maybe the acting career, Greg, that you've always dreamed of, that's going to be possible if you sign to a major and they get you moderately famous in the tabloids.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? All these are musical artists that suddenly develop acting careers.
Or actors like Idris Elba who suddenly try and develop music careers.
Really? Is it any good?
No.
It was the same when I found out that David Duchovny was in a band. And it's just like, no. And he's been given airplay because of his brand association.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you want to be in a band, that's great. Everyone's entitled to a hobby, but don't elevate it to a level of a professionalism. It was terrible.
But you'd probably go to one of, at the time, you'd probably go to one of his gigs on the hope that Gillian Anderson would be there. I know you would,
No,
Greg.
this has all been done afterwards. This wasn't done whilst he was in as Mulder. It's just like, oh, this is just no, mate.
And this is it. Because he was who he was, he probably got signed as well.
Yeah, more than likely.
More than likely. Right, so we've talked about some upsides. Let's talk about some downsides. Now, the biggest one...
Hang on, before you jump in with your biggest one.
Yeah.
You know that money you were talking about that you get given at the beginning?
The advance, yes.
The advance, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it a loan?
It's not necessarily a loan, but it is a prepayment on royalties that will come in. So in other words, they won't ask for it back. However, if you get £100,000 advance, that is an advance on the first £100,000 that you make. So you have to make £100,000 for the record label before you will ever see a penny of it ever again.
Is that £100,000 at your percentage? So would that be paying £100,000 back out of, say, for example, your 15%, which I believe is actually quite generous for an artist?
Yeah, it could be 15%, could be 20%. So yeah, you have to work on the basis that.
So that's net, not gross.
Yeah, my maths is terrible, but you are going to have to earn significantly more, say another 80% of that. Yeah.
You'd have to earn 5 times that to pay back your advance if you're going to go on the basis of 20%.
Yep.
So you'd have to sell £500,000 worth of stuff just to break even and actually be earning.
Well, that actually was point number 3 on my list, but let's go with it anyway. Labels will take most of the profits.
They have taken most of the risk, though.
They do. And again, I think it's something like less than 1 in 10 artists ever make a profit for for major labels. Oh yeah, they've no idea what they're doing. They'll just sign anybody and they'll just throw loads of money at it, and it's like, oh, that one didn't work. Let's get another one. But it's the likes of your Ed Sheerans, your Rihannas, your let's say Cardi B's, and it's all those people who make mega millions. They basically subsidize all the ones that don't.
Yeah.
But, and again, there's always there's a continued talk about how streaming doesn't make a lot for musicians, but that is because 80% of the money that artists make goes straight to the record labels, and they just get between 15 and 20% of any sort of streaming money. So streaming money is small, and then an artist's percentage of that is even smaller.
Well, yeah, and also, but the thing is, I don't like it when the media blame Spotify, and it's like, well, the rate that the artist is paid is determined with the agreement that they've made with the artist, with the label. So, that artist needs to renegotiate a better deal with their label to receive a better dividend from Spotify that they receive from the label.
So, labels will take most of the money if they've given you an advance. It may well be that for your particular recorded music project, you might not ever see any of it. And, I know some acts that have released, it's coming up for, I think, the 20th anniversary of a particular release. And I don't think they've ever recouped the money for their advance. So, and this is the next thing, the labels, if they've paid for something to be recorded, it's theirs. Those master recordings are theirs. And this particular act, as I say, I've never seen any money further than their advance. And their seminal album, which is like 20 years old, is owned by someone else. They don't even own it.
So, which band is this?
Oh, I'm not going to talk I'm not going to talk specifics, but
all right, tell me afterwards.
I will do.
Okay.
So if a label has paid for a piece of music to be recorded, the mechanical copyright is theirs to do with they please.
But it is like if you're a graphics designer and you are employed by a graphics design house, the designs you create are owned by the company you work for.
Oh, very much.
Because ultimately you are working, and that's ultimately what you are as an artist. If you're signed to a label, you're basically, excuse me, a member of their staff.
But and the thing that you've got to remember is that especially with larger concerns, your music might not actually be a priority over the years. Again, in terms of larger labels, certain acts get signed by certain individuals within companies. That individual leaves that organization, and there's nobody left to champion a particular act or a particular artist. And it could well be that, we'll put it out, but we won't really give it, a large promotional push. And there are, many, many stories of acts recording their debut albums to a label, and the label have gone, you know what, I think times have changed and the music scene's moved on. We're not even going to release this. And depending upon the clauses and terms within your contracts, you might not even be able to re-record that music with someone else. So can you imagine, Greg, the heartbreak to record your first album with all your best songs on, for it not to be released, and you are unable to release those songs either yourself or through anyone else?
Yeah, that would be pretty terrible. I mean, I'm just going to tell you after we record this particular episode, one particular band that recorded at Parr Street that happened to. Right. Okay.
I get it. What we know.
Yeah. It's. I think it is. I mean, bands and artists need to be more savvy to what they're agreeing to. I think when someone comes along and starts offering you money, it's a bit like you're just got to go, yep, I'll agree to anything.
It's a bit like throwing a hot dog to a dog. That dog's going to be very excited. It's going to be jumping up and down, and they don't necessarily think about all the implications. Especially we've both worked with younger musicians who just see signing to a label as a big shiny object that they feel incredibly drawn to, and it may well be that that's something that that's all they've ever wanted, to have their music released, and they don't necessarily think about all the necessary implications, which is sort of what we're doing now. But yeah, those are the risks. It's a bit like,
people are kind of going, I want to go to the pub, give me whatever it is so I can go to the pub. And it's just like, okay, do you not want to kind of read the fine print first? Nope. I want to go to the pub.
Yes. You don't want to read this contract? Nope. Contracts are boring. I just want to make music.
I want to go to the pub.
Okay. And the last one that I've got, and again, we've already sort of touched upon this, is will this label be any good at their job? We've already said that 9 out of 10 acts don't ever recoup for the labels that they're signed to. So you can argue that maybe record labels don't actually know that much about either music, or even despite their size, they don't know really how to market it well. I mean, a lot of major labels still do old world tactics of just spending a lot of money, which is essentially your money if you're an artist, just throwing and just spending as much money as possible, trying to reach as many people as possible without using maybe 21st century targeted sort of advertising. So you can argue that maybe a lot of labels, certainly the larger labels, are still very much stuck in the past. You can maybe sort of say that perhaps maybe smaller labels and those sort of micro labels that we were talking about at the beginning of the show, are they really going to be any better at marketing your music than yourself? Because, like, if a one person record label approached me and said, Sheldon, can I release your music? I'm probably going to say no, because I don't think you can do a better job than what I can.
I guess, yeah, you've got to look at it as what you're giving up is the reward going to be more so than the cost.
Yeah, and I think I know my fan base well, simply because I've been marketing and engaging with them for such a long period of time. I know a good deal about various sort of music marketing strategies, and just because somebody says, "Oh, I can release some music for you," that doesn't necessarily mean they can actually market it to any significant degree. They might do they might release it, but they might do an absolutely terrible job.
Yes, but think about what you said earlier in the pros. You don't have to do everything yourself.
I know, but I don't. I maybe I'm a control freak, but I'm not ready to relinquish my babies, if you want to refer to them as that.
Oh, spoken like a true artist.
Oh, yeah, and again, it could be the sort of childminder who literally just gives them a packet of crisps and a can of Tizer and sits in front of an iPad all day. That's no way to look after my children.
At the same time, though, they could be amazing. They could be like Mary Poppins and do a fantastic job.
They could be. And I suppose one way to try and decipher that is maybe to have a look at how that particular label handles their marketing and their releases. And it may well be that you could potentially chat to other artists on their roster and say, do you think that this particular label has done well for you? So that might be one avenue of inquiry that you could potentially go down. So we've had some pros. We've had some cons. I know, are you hoping to release some music this year, Greg? Are you finally going to pluck up the courage with your current musical project?
It's going. One of the tracks has been mastered. I'm just doing on the finalization of one of the other parts that will go out to be mastered probably tomorrow, actually.
Oh, very good.
And stuff. So I've been just finalizing stuff. You know what it's like, forever tweaking.
Oh, there's nothing like a deadline in order to force you to get something out. So, based upon that, I mean, what do you think? Would there ever be any possible situation where you would sign to a label?
Yes.
Well, there we go. There we go. Go on. And what would your reason be? Would you sign to anybody, whatever their size? Go on.
I mean, depending on, I wouldn't just sign blindly. I would certainly, fortunately, the other person in the band is a solicitor, so that kind of does help.
Always does.
But I think, in all honesty, it wouldn't be a career choice because I'm already doing it. So the idea of I need to give up my job to earn money kind of thing, I think the exposure is more important than at this stage than the revenue that'll be earned. I think
you say that now, but what would happen if something got released and it went on to be a multi-mega success, and it earns the label millions, and you barely see any of it.
But because this is where it gets slightly a bit more, I would agree a licensing deal, because we've already footed the bill of actually manufacturing the material.
That was my final point. I mean, I'm very much of the opinion that for the amount of time that, because like I said, the majority of people who listen to this will probably got a full-time job, and music is their side hustle. It's what they do because it makes them feel good. It's self-expression, that sort of thing, and we don't really have as much time to devote on it as possible. But I think if you can finance the recording of your own music, and if you ever got approached by somebody, the best thing to do would be to try and license it to them, so you own all the copyrights, and you could maybe sort of leverage their expertise in terms of marketing and distribution and take off some of the weight of all the work that you have to do in terms of the logistics. I think that's the best of both worlds. You retain full artistic control, and you get someone else to literally do all the heavy lifting in terms of the paperwork, the logistics.
Even just doing things like a video shoot, like a narrative-based video. I've been looking at it, even like the simple videos. I watched a video recently of the Norwegian artist, Sigrid. I don't know if you know her.
Oh, yes.
But there was a video where she couldn't actually make the video shoot, so the director had to be in the video, and that they kind of showed behind the scenes of this video. And there's this one part where the guy's just walking basically on a hill of a sort, and you kind of going, and there's literally him, and then there's 4 other people behind the scenes. So you got someone holding the camera, you got the director, you got all these other people, and you're like, what are they doing? But you kind of going, well, they must be there for a reason. So to have someone to take care of all that, when you start to realize the logistics, even like other videos where they're quite straightforward, like some of the Porter Robinson videos, you've got about 20 people kind of doing roles, and it's like, and I've started working on a narrative and suddenly trying to direct it, be in the video, and all these things which isn't really I have got very little experience in doing narrative-based videos. You're kind of going, I've really taken on a lot here. And like the artist, you want it to be the best it possibly can be. But at the same time, it's knowing where you kind of go, right, okay, I can't do more than that. That's the limitation. And then bringing someone else in. So like your editing, your color grading and stuff like that, we'll probably outsource to someone on Fiverr to begin with. But to have someone to come in just to take care of all that, it'd be amazing.
Oh, it would, wouldn't it? I'm saying that as somebody who is probably trying to go to shoot a music video on their phone in the downtime whilst we have our lunch. This coming Saturday. So yes. Oh, all right. All hands on deck. All hands on deck. So there we go. Pros and cons.
But yeah, I would do it just because. At the
sell
moment,
out.
No, it's just because the stuff I'm doing at the moment is. You get a lot of people who are like, oh, the artistic integrity, and I used to be like that. Now I'm just like, I want music to be heard by the largest audience possible. So I'm already making compromises anyway to make it radio friendly. So that my babies, don't get me wrong, I'm still proud of it. But when I did a thing recently, and I was chatting to Christian Burns, who's a reasonably well-known artist, and he said, listen to the track and gave some feedback on it, and went, I would suggest you do this, you do this, and you do this, and I've gone, okay, fine, and I've gone back in and I've made some changes and I've been quite ruthless, and I'm glad I have, because I think the track is all the better for it. So
And also, she didn't come to me, but that's...
No. Hang on a second. When I finished it, which will be later, you'll probably hear it at the weekend. Well, no, you might not hear it at the weekend. You'll be too busy. But no, you will hear it.
Let's not get into domestics before we finish the show. Listen, thank you very much for watching or listening to this particular episode. Please tell all your DIY musician, independent artist friends about us. Smash the subscribe button, whatever you do on your podcast app of choice.
Right in the comments beneath, have you got any experience of labels? Have you had great deals? Have you had bad deals?
And if you've got a particular topic that you'd like us to natter about and investigate and give our particular views, again, stick something in the comments, send us a DM, and until then, we will see you next time. You take care now.
All right, see you soon.
Bye-bye.